Hey everybody, this is Cherokee Edwards from Cherokee Edwards Inspires, where we're going to have shows here to talk about life, to talk about what makes your life special, what makes it better, and everybody working together, because together everyone achieves more. Acronym for the word team. Stay tuned and let's get it on. Man, so first of all, welcome. Thank you for joining us. All right, I'm going to get started. This is the Cherokee Edwards Inspires show. And I'm here with a friend of me, and it's like a brother from another mother, Nigel Dred Campbell. What's up, Nigel?
Hey, what's going on, Cherokee? It's a pleasure being on.
Oh man, it's a pleasure having you on, buddy. It's a pleasure to have you on. And I know you're up there and up north dealing with all this drama, man. How's everything holding up for you out there?
So first of all, I'm in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
I'm next to New York.
Yes.
And I function out of the city of Paterson, New Jersey.
Okay.
And I also function out of a close neighboring city named Teaneck, New Jersey.
Okay.
And if you're not privy to this information, Teaneck, it was almost like ground zero for this entire area.
Wow.
Because the first cases started popping up in Teaneck, and it hasn't stopped since. 3 weeks ago, I think we were at maybe 2 or 3 cases. We're at 1,000.
Wow.
In Teaneck.
Jesus. Man. Well, I know, man. Just keep yourself safe up there. My prayers are with you, brother. My prayers are with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. So, but I know one thing about you, man. You love the children. You love the youth just like I do. So it's a blessing to have you on here. And I want to start off right off the bat. Let's talk about your career and as a preschool teacher, and then we'll jump right into your boxing instruction. Let's talk about this preschool and how'd you come about being a teacher? What pushed you into that?
You know what? I asked myself that very same question. Initially, you tend to plan life,
mm-hmm.
and at some point you realize that there is a bigger planner than you. Some people say it's God. Some people say it's the universe.
Right.
Some people find many different ways to put their finger on it. However, coming out of college, I left college in 2001,
mm-hmm.
and during that period of time, we'll go back to September 11th
mm-hmm.
was the blast at that point.
Right.
That was almost like what shook up the world.
Yes.
The two towers fallen.
Yes.
And when the two towers fell, I lost my mom during that period of time, which was February, Valentine's Day of that year earlier.
Right.
And, it left me in a state of disarray. I was confused. I was mad. I was irritated.
Right.
I wanted to go to law school, and things didn't really shape out the way that I wanted it to go.
Right.
And I was just applying for jobs.
Right.
I wanted to be able to, pay my bills, keep a roof over my head, a car under me, and just to be able to live.
Right.
So I started filling out applications, and in doing so, I wasn't able to get any jobs. And one job finally, I had an interview at a rehab center, and when I went for that job, at the interview, I was asked, "But what is it that you really want to do?" And I said to the lady, other than feeding myself right now, being able to survive, I really wish to, I wanted to go to law school. And she asked me nicely to get out of her office. She said, "With that said, I can't hire you."
Wow.
And I said, "But miss, I really do need a job. I'm very desperate at this moment, if you don't mind." It's
Right.
almost at the point where I'm just asking you, please, just give me a chance. And she says, "No." So I walked out of there with my head down, and I got a phone call the following day. And it was from a small agency.
Mm-hmm.
I was just so happy to get an interview. I went.
Right.
And it was a school. And it was a preschool, to make things even more exact.
Wow.
And I was so appreciative of the experience because they hired me on the spot.
Wow.
I took the job.
That's amazing.
But I didn't take the job because I wanted to teach little kids. I really was embarrassed by it, so I didn't tell no one I worked at a school where young children were.
Right.
Not when my friends are telling me about corporate America, and I have to go back and reflect on the fact that some people knew I had aspirations of being a lawyer.
Right.
I really wasn't proud of it.
Right.
And then something changed.
What happened?
What really changed for me was to realize that I was touching lives at the grassroots level.
Wow.
That everything starts somewhere. I am working in close proximity with parents who are the first educators of their children, and they lend me an opportunity to be the next person to carry on and set the foundation for elementary school,
right.
set the foundation for middle school, high school, college, and thereafter.
Right. Wow. Well, it looks like, you know, you have this passion. I can feel it through the phone, and it sounds like you're motivated now by changing their lives. Expand on that a little bit. If you have any testimonies to some of the students that have caught your heart and you've changed their life or changed the way they view things.
Very good question. I have several testimonies. Now, I used to think being a male was just, you know, that's what I am. I'm just a male.
Right.
But that's not true. When you are a male, better yet, the male is just the sex of the person.
Right.
But when you grow into becoming a man and start understanding the importance of contributing to the welfare of other young people who will be men and women at some point in their life.
Right.
And how you touch it makes a difference if you break this egg or it transition into a chicken to make more eggs.
Right.
Which means you didn't damage it.
Right.
You enhance it.
Right.
You nurture it.
Right.
You care for it.
Mm.
So Cherokee, really and truly, I start realizing that young boys, young girls in the inner city where I was working at were very, very open to be redirected. They were very open to allow themselves the opportunity to have someone who's a role model to them.
Exactly.
And it struck me very, very hard.
Wow.
Because when I look around, there wasn't a lot of me.
Right.
Especially at those early stages where a young child is starting to show you how intellectually sound they are.
Yeah, that's deep.
So you miss those things.
Right.
Then I had to think back, and I said, well, 90% of my educators were females. They were women, and they did a very good job. But where are our men?
Right. Right.
And if though there are some, they're not enough. And the ones that are there, we have lost some because they weren't positive enough.
Right.
So then I see the Raheems, I see the Jessicas, I see the Marias, because we have a melting pot of Hispanics, blacks, minimum whites, sometimes some Asians, that comes into our system or within the neighborhood where we facilitate education for young students. And I start seeing those students gravitate towards their greater self because I wouldn't take less of what they would offer. And a parent say to me, how did you get my son or my daughter to do this? I have young children that are adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing, and they're only 4 years old.
That's what I'm talking about. Amazing.
I have young children who were autistic that never spoke before said their first words to me.
Jeez.
To the point where somebody said, you're a liar. until it was proven true.
Little TLC.
I'm seeing college graduates that say, hey, Mr. Campbell, hey, that was my teacher. And somebody say, I've been with you since we was in elementary school. He wasn't one of our teachers. I said, nah, he was my preschool teacher. So how you remember him? So as you listen, while you wait for your tea at the tea shop, you hear two teenage kids corresponding with each other, communicating back and forth. And one is briefing the other. Though I know you this long, I met him before I met you. That's why you don't remember him, because he wasn't your teacher. And he said, well, how do you remember him? Impact. That's what he never said to him. He impacted my life.
Yes. Yes. That's amazing. I mean, and that's like you said, we need more males like us to come back and show the urban community, the Black community, the Hispanic community, the Asian community, anybody, the white community, people that don't feel like they can do something. They need to not only hear us, but they need to see us. And that impact that you had on that young male and that young female and the males that you're talking about, you're going to see them blossom into something special because of what you did all the way back in preschool. That's amazing. That's amazing.
They remember you by name. There's two ways it goes. Either they remember you for something negative, and usually it's with anger when they run into you, or they do separation. They distance themselves.
Yep.
There's nothing to talk about.
Exactly.
But when they remember your name, when they remember the experiences they had, when you remind them of things that they found that was great about themselves early. I had one young child named Raheem McCoy said to me, Mr. Campbell, you know what happened? I interviewed Barack Obama. Yes, I did. I did. You know what? I asked him the questions that the other students didn't know to ask him. And he answered me.
Wow.
I met him.
Wow.
And I interviewed him.
Man.
And Raheem was placed into my class because he wouldn't listen to no one else. He was classified as a problem child. But Raheem was an intellectual that was bored.
Yeah.
That needed structure. And someone that was going to be serious but compassionate.
Right.
Be firm but supportive.
Exactly.
Be stern but respectful.
Right. Amazing. Amazing what we can do.
Amazing. I mean, I haven't really had an opportunity to reflect in this way because I haven't been asked any questions as of late. So it's coming to me as we speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you deserve to hear it too, because it's like, I put a lot of time in with the youth as well. And it's like, you don't get to see the fruits a lot of times of your labor, and people aren't going to say, hey, Nigel, you did a great job, even though you didn't do it for that pat on the back. But sometimes it's great to reflect and know that some of these mountains that you move, you get to see the clearance, and it's amazing. I got chills listening to you tell that story, because to be honest, as a young boy myself, growing up in the inner city of Philadelphia, I found myself bored a lot in classes, and it's not necessarily that the child is unteachable. It's that you have to find ways of motivating them and challenging them, and you only do that when you care. And it sounds like what I know of you as well is you care so much for them.
It is. You have to. I mean, really and truly.
Yeah.
How could you not care?
Exactly.
If you want to be in a position where you are vibrating, and you're vibrating at a magnitude where it makes difference, first with yourself, and then with others, and then you're not saying it's impossible.
Right.
to captivate or capture or stimulate young minds.
Right.
These things are happening. Where I have a young child, I have a parent that reflects something to me at home, because, you know, I think it takes a village to raise a child, and I really, I'm convinced that is a fact.
That is definitely a fact.
I was raised in a neighborhood, in a small neighborhood on the outskirts of Montego Bay, Jamaica, of the West Indies, and I am a product of that very thing, where it is my neighborhood that raised me.
Right.
And I felt like the neighborhood did very good guiding me, no different from a ping ball game that you're trying to keep the paddle to really guide that ball from falling down.
That's right.
That hole.
That's a beautiful analogy. Beautiful analogy.
Thank you. So the neighbors played and did what they had to do. Mm-hmm. I didn't understand it until I became older and understand by seeing a need to say, hey, young man, you know, yes, I know you might not know me, but I also work in your school, and I really would appreciate it if you use better language, because I know that you are capable of doing so.
Exactly.
And they could turn around and say, or whatever the case may be, but it halted. You know, they thought about it.
Right.
These things happen.
Right.
So it takes a neighborhood to raise a child. And I had a mom reflect something, an experience that she had at home. Mm-hmm. And it's funny that I remember this, because the mom said, when I was pregnant with this child, I was in my 40s. I was 45. And the doctors asked me if I know what I'm doing, because it's very dangerous.
Right.
Because I'm old.
Right.
And so I became scared, because when I started doing the mammograms and stuff like that, they start saying the child is at risk. The brain don't look like it's developing properly. Mm. But I refused to get rid of that child. I stopped working and doing the things that was stressful just to bear that child. And in the event of doing so, the child was born. During that early stage, based on that fear, I spent a significant amount of time talking to the young child, singing to the young child. And when he was able to start walking and start uttering his first words, I made sure I was there to hear and reflect appropriate sounds of words that were meaningful to him, so he started speaking early. Wow. By the time he was 3 years old, we were able to get him to understand the sounds of letters of the alphabet, so on and so forth, and reading wasn't far off. So he learned to read before he came to preschool. Now, they start preschool at that time at 3, but now they have the infant, the infant and toddler, where you have the young babies that come in 4 months old, all the way up from those small, young age, all the way into preschool, and they transition them to 3-year-old, 4-year-old classes off the kindergarten, and afterwards, all those other grades that come afterwards. Right. So with that, you start seeing more and more young students come in. Right. Where the program, which was Concerned Parents for Head Start at that time, was having young babies in that grew with the program. Mm-hmm. Now, the young child had a situation at home. His name was Jaden. And Jaden grew and came to my classroom. He was already a reader. At that time, he was capable of reading books upside down, sitting behind the book, reading it from sitting with 4 or 5 kids in front of him, and he's reading from looking at the book that was faced to his audience appropriately and upside down to him. Cool. And he would read it. But I thought, I wasn't paying attention, so I thought this young child was just trying to read the illustrations that were on the pages. Right. It wasn't until I was putting the books away after his mom left, I realized the book he was reading, he was actually reading the book. So I said, how could this be? Right. Which forced me to speak to the parent off record. Say, hey, you know, I had the privilege of noticing. She said, oh, I didn't tell you. You know, and that's when she's telling me what I'm telling you. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is she's sharing with me. she says, after he left your classroom, he graduated at 4.5, going on 5 years old, and he went to kindergarten. He was tested out of kindergarten. He went to first grade and was tested out of first grade and went to the second grade.
Jesus. Woo.
She said, we had a conversation at home. I was cooking. So this is what I wanted to tell you. And she says, he has piggy banks at home that were full. From all the books that he have read, he have been paid $25 for each book. So if he have over 5 piggy banks that were full,
wow.
Tell you how many books.
Imagine how many books that, yeah.
Right.
Good gracious.
So now, he says to me, Mom, I'm going to find something in this house that doesn't say made in China. The mother said, you earn $10 if you do. 10 minutes later, he came back and he was crying. So his mother said, what seems to be the problem? He said, Mom, I can't find nothing that says made in China. And the mother says, gather yourself together, go upstairs, and if you can't find nothing that says made in China, that's just what it is. You're either going to look more or are you going to give it up?
Right.
At the top of the stairs, looking down into the kitchen, he turned to his mother and he said, Mom, was I made in China?
Wow.
And she gave him the $10 to put in his piggy bank.
Wow.
The point is, these young children that we're meeting are intellects.
Right.
They're not babysat in school.
Right.
We're functioning from a science-based educational tool called creative curriculum, which deals with the social, emotional, language, physical, which is fine motors and gross motors. Mm-hmm. You're dealing with math. You're dealing with technology. You're dealing with English language learners or dual language learners development.
Right.
Thinking is the key. Thinking is what we stimulate.
Mm-hmm.
So our kids are masterminds early, and that's what I wanted to say. I've met them daily.
Wow. Well, we're going to take a break for station identification, and we will be right back with Mr. Nigel Dred Campbell.
If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
All right, Nigel, we're back, and man, that was so enlightening. I love that story. I know that as educated as you are, that you're pretty much an avid reader. So what I want to do is I want to ask you for books that you would recommend and maybe that influenced you. What kind of books have you read that you would recommend for young people to read, or even older people?
Well, I've read this book called, I think it was by Dale Carnegie, called How to Win Friends and Influence People. Mm-hmm. I think that was a very solid book. I like it for many different reasons. This is one that I would suggest.
Right.
I read Think and Grow Rich. Mm-hmm. Great. I think it's a very, very, very powerful.
Yes, it is.
Real, tangible reflections that actually show you why today is what it is and how people were thinking to make today what it is, and why we shouldn't stop thinking, because everything is possible.
Exactly.
I have read As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. I really, really respect that, because I believe that piece spoke to me.
Right.
Very deep. I've also think from Poverty to Wealth by James Allen was also another powerful piece that spoke to me, and I believe that it could speak to just about anyone. But for any teen who is going through hardship, any grown up, any developing person that's going out of their boyhood stage into their young adolescent, into their manhood, from girls, from teen to young girls into their womanhood. There's also a spin-off version of As a Woman Thinking. I would also suggest that for them because I didn't take it as the sense of as a man, as in MAN, but as mankind.
Right.
But someone specifically spoke to the woman as well, and I really, really respect that.
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly.
There, of course, the 48 Laws of Power. You know, is another piece, and that I've been privy to look at, survey, and see how, you know, what the writers were thinking and how influential it could be to a thinking person, especially a positive thinking person, because though that is a pro and con book that really shows you, you know, how to bring things, you know, be destructive too. So you have to take it with a grain of salt.
Exactly.
The 48 Laws of Power, it could be deceitful if you are not good within yourself. So, you know, if someone is to read the 48 Laws of Power, I would suggest that they read As a Man Thinketh before they read the 48 Laws of Power. Just my opinion.
No, I agree with that. I've read those books as well, and I fully agree with that. So I know we got a few minutes before we wrap it up. You also train in boxing. What's that all about?
I got hit by a car, and I was confined to my bed for almost a year. And during that period of time, I kept flicking through the channel, and I was searching for something that I want to watch because I had much time on my hand. I did a lot of writing. I like writing poetry. I like to express my thoughts, and I like to put them down on paper. So I'm a lover of books.
Right.
During that time, as I flicked through, I found boxing matches on Fridays and Saturdays, and I was wondering, why aren't there any Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday? I searched, and I still, you know, was unsuccessful. So I said, well, it seems like I'm always searching for boxing. When I am able to walk and do the things that I want to do, I'm going to sign up to a boxing gym and start learning the art form of boxing. During the period of time, I had much time to start communicating and talking to other people that were collectors of fights, and I started trading fights from California to Jersey. And I developed a catalog that I was watching several different fight catalogs of old fighters because I started being captured by it. So when I began walking again, I decided to go back to the gym, get my strength and conditioning up to par, and I met some young men that were very, very good physical trainers that were open to let newcomers in, and I was one of the newcomers. And they said, man, this, for you to be such a little guy, I don't think I've met another little guy that has a heart like you and work as hard as you, and that's not just to tickle your fancy.
Right.
I really, really appreciate letting you in, bro. I was worried at first when you go through the muscle fatigue and you know, you start telling me about how your body felt. I thought you would have quit, but you didn't. Here you are now. I transitioned from there back to the boxing gym. I joined a boxing gym, so I was doing both. And while I was there, something interesting happened. I didn't go to the gym acting like I knew anything. I went to the gym to be a fighter myself, because I always thought I was a fighter deep in my core, and I learned something more that I really was. And I wanted to put it to the test. So it's one way to find out, and let's go discover something new. How far can I push myself? Right. And I went there. I met a young man while I was there. He was part of a blood gang. And his name was Ace. And while talking to Ace, he sold me a rap CD, and he invited me to his first boxing match. Well, a boxing match. I went to the boxing match, and I saw him there 4 days later. and I didn't know it was him. He was 40 pounds smaller than what I last saw him 4 days ago.
Wow.
And he was the first fight up of the night, and his trainer wasn't there. And a friend said to me, "Hey, Dred, why don't you warm him up? They just call his name." I said, "What you mean warm him up?" He said, "Well, just like get him warm, have him throw some punches because he's going in now. Where is so-and-so?" I said, "I don't know. Let me ask him." He said he doesn't know. So I borrowed up some pads, and I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but I told him I held it up, both of them, and I said, "Keep hitting it until you feel like you're warm," like they did in the gym.
Right.
The young man got in maybe about 5 minutes later. His trainer just was showing up, and he was going for about the first 30 seconds, and he got beaten up, and he lost. When he left the ring, he came out the ring with the doctor, and his trainer was gone. And I was the only one standing there.
Wow.
And I didn't leave him. He was embarrassed, I could tell. And I asked him, I said, "If you don't mind me," I said, I like the fact that you didn't quit. You lost. You looked good for the first 30 seconds. But do you know why you lost? He didn't really want to talk. But as the days went on, he spoke to me. I said, "Well, you lost because you lost your fight before you got to the fight. You were 40 pounds less.
Yeah.
That's not your weight.
Right.
Your body is not going to be able to do what it can do because you killed it before you used it.
Right.
And it's not going to lie for you.
Right.
Unless you pack one punch, right?
Right.
So the long story short is I told the gentleman to eat, rehydrate himself, and let me show him, based on what I know about running track and playing soccer, how to lose weight. And he said, okay. And I put my thing on the back burner and start working with him.
Wow.
He did very well. He made weight. He dropped down maybe about 25 or 30 pounds within that summer month, and he started competing properly going into those other months. And he said to me, "Why don't you be my trainer? Because I never met someone that cared for me this much."
Right.
I said, "Well, the only way I'll do that is if what you're going to do is conducive to changing your life and other people's life that look at you as a role model." And he looked at me like I was high when I said a role model. And he said, "What you mean change my life?" I said, "Well, you have disclosed to me that you're part of a street gang, and I understand how that works. You see, I would help you just to understand that you could do things differently. And if you're going to do things differently, you have to do it really different.
Right.
Are you willing to give that a try?" And he said, "Sure." He got tattoos and covered up his gang tattoos. He went to his big street master and he told the guy, "Look, man, I'm not out in the streets no more. I'm going to try to do something positive with my life. And boxing in the streets don't hold hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
So if whatever you guys want to do, either going to pardon me or you're going to fight me to get out or whatever the case may be." And the guy shook him and hugged him well and said, "Listen, just make sure you do the best that you can to grow."
Wow.
If that's not a success story,
Yeah, that's awesome.
I don't know what is.
That's amazing. Well,
I've watched that young man grow to the point where I said, this is just one guy. And he started telling other guys and other guys and other guys until people start saying, "Hold on, this guy? How many fights he had? Like he was an old fighter?" And he never had one fight. But I'm telling you, this guy knows some stuff, man.
Wow.
And that's how it took off. And I never left the gym. The challenge came when other trainers who were old fighters says, "A person that never fight can't train you how to fight. A person that never have a personal boxing match where they're in the ring fighting and winning can't teach you how to fight." Until I start winning fights back to back to back.
Right.
Prove that to be false. I say a teacher is just a teacher.
That's right.
Anyone who understands and is able to convey to a person what he wants them to understand or what she wants them to understand, and do it with dignity, integrity, love, pride, and dedication, yeah.
Yeah.
Do they themselves want to learn?
That's right.
And I was a student first before I walked in there. But I grew up in a house that have love.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't rich, but it was full of love.
Right.
And I also brought that outside with me. So it wasn't hard to care for people.
Right.
And I took that with me, and I never looked back. It's been 16 years.
It's amazing.
I can't tell you how many fights I've won, how many pros I've worked with, how many young kids I've showed how to use their hands the right way.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing.
That's been one of the biggest truths that I've had to live with. Saying one person can change the world.
Yes, indeed.
Oh, my God.
Yes, indeed. Well, Nigel, that was a powerful, powerful interview, man. I appreciate you so much. But before we get off, how can people reach out to you? What's the best way to contact you for these young people and people that would want to reach out and talk to you?
Well, I have a social media that I could be reached. This Dred Boxing, DRED BOXING, Dred Boxing, and that's on Instagram.
Okay.
And you could DM me. You could reach out that way. I wasn't a big mover behind social media.
Mm-hmm.
However, I was led to understand a little bit more about it. Then I embarked upon it, and that's one way you could reach me. You could also see I try to show more of my work with young children,
mm-hmm.
more so than older folks
right.
or grown fighters, because the youth they're the future.
They're the future.
And if you could deal with young children or deal with young people and see their passion, bend your back and work behind them, deal with the frustration that comes, deal with the parents and the fussiness that comes with it, then you're ready to deal with just about anyone else, because that's the hardest part.
Well,
so that's how
well said. And that is Nigel Dred Campbell, everybody. And go ahead and take a look at it and see if you can follow him. It was a beautiful, beautiful interview. And Nigel, again, thank you so much, man, for getting on here with me and chopping it up. And that is the Cherokee Edwards Inspires. And I'm gonna say peace to you, my brother.
Thank you very much for having me, and it was a pleasure.
You too, man. We'll talk soon.
All right. Bye-bye.